Hi, my name's Rachel Colant. I am a Wahl Ambassador and I'm here with Zoey today. Her mom, Kathy, is an OEM in engineering at Wahl. We're gonna get started with her haircut. I'm gonna start with pads, her sanitary, and clearing out in front of her eyes. After talking to Kathy, we decided that we're gonna do a cute puppy trim pet cut on her today. I'm gonna go a little bit shorter on the body, leave the legs a little bit fuller, and give her a cute round face. I'm gonna be using a 5-in-1 bravura for most of the haircut, and I'm gonna get started with the pads, sanitary, and clearing out in front of her eyes. I'm gonna use a 40 setting to shave her pads, and I wanna hold her foot parallel and just clear out everything that would be touching the table or hanging on the ground. It's been a little while since she's had a haircut, so this area is pretty overgrown. And I'm just gonna repeat the same thing for my front foot, still trying to hold it parallel. She's got some matting in here, which is pretty normal to see on pet trims. So I'm gonna try to clean out this area without digging in too much and causing discomfort. And we got that big clump out of there. Now we just wanna clean this up, make it pretty, skim, and get everything that might be touching the floor. For the sanitary, I'm gonna switch to the longest setting, which is a 9. Anywhere between a 9 and 15, which is the medium, anywhere between a 9 and 15, which is the middle setting, would work for a sanitary, but I don't know this dog. I don't know how sensitive she is, so I wanna do a longer setting to try to avoid any irritation. Since she's a girl, I'm gonna start back here. And then I'm gonna finish underneath. She does have some tangles down here, also very common in pets. I just wanna make sure that I get this cleaned out and get all those tangles. It's a really sensitive area to brush out. We don't wanna pull on that hair. We're just gonna use our blade to shave it. My last step with my 5-in-1 blade before I put a guard comb on is gonna be shaving right in between the eyes. I still wanna keep this on the longest setting. And I'm just gonna move the visor hair back and go about a pinky's width in between the eyes. Then I'm gonna flip for the corners and use the corner few teeth to get that inside corner of the eye. So for the body, I'm gonna use a 2 with a 40 setting. And I wanna make sure that I'm clippering all the way up to the bulb on the back of the ear and really all the way up to the occiput. She's grown out a lot. Her mom told me she normally gets a pretty short haircut. So I really like a 2 body for an easier maintenance pet trim. I think it looks really nice. It still leaves enough fluff that you have some personality, you have a little style, you can add some flair, but it's low maintenance enough for, you know, a 6 to 8 week client. Right now I'm just focusing on the dog's body. I'm gonna clipper the legs a little bit longer. Again, going all the way up to the dog's jaw, right behind the ear. And because I'm gonna leave the legs just 1 length longer to give some style for this pet trim, I wanna skim with my clipper off of the widest part of the dog's shoulder muscle. I'm just gonna follow my line back clear out the belly. And for the rear leg, I'm gonna find the widest part of the thigh muscle and skim straight down so that I can set myself up to have a nice parallel line. Also gonna set in just a little bit of rear angulation. I'm gonna take my clipper all the way down to the point where the thigh meets the hock. So I'm gonna go full, lighter, lighter, lighter pressure, and just give a shorter rear. This is great for pet trims because that's a high friction area. It's not really adding anything to our haircut. It does add some style, and it's something you can do to add a little bit of extra style and flair with the same blade or clipper comb length that you're already using on your clipper. So coming back to the front, I want to make sure that I'm setting my front arm underneath the dog as well. If you do rear angulation on a dog, even a pet trim, you want to make sure that you have some front angulation. So clippering on the front leg of the dog, I just want to set that front leg just slightly underneath. And I also want to make sure my transition points from the shorter areas on the body into what will be a little bit longer on the leg are blended. After my clipper work is finished on the body, I'm gonna switch to a longer length for the legs. This is a 1 guard comb or 1/2 inch, and we're just gonna take the whole leg down with our clipper. And when I'm using especially a clipper like a 5-in-1 that has a little bit less power than something like the KM10s, I want to make sure that I'm clippering very slowly and letting the clipper do its job. If you want to get a smooth finish, you have to let the clipper get enough passes over the hair to cut it evenly. When I do the front of the leg, I want to try to stretch her leg as much as possible so I can get a solid long swipe all the way down the front of the leg. She likes to hold her leg high up. That's okay. I just want you guys to see I don't want to hold her leg in an unnatural position, but that's where she's holding it, so it must be comfortable for her. And I want to try to get as long and as slow of strokes as I possibly can so that I get a really nice blended finish, and I don't have to do too much scissor work on these legs. I'm really just going to use my scissors to just round the bottom of that foot. But I've also done some rounding with my clipper already when I did a 40 on the paw pads. I want to get all sides of the leg, including the inside. And again, I just want to go slow enough that I'm not going to have to do too much scissor work. Really just want to only have to scissor the round foot. My approach to the front leg is the same. I want to try to get as long of a swipe as possible. I don't want to cut her ear hair, so I want to make sure her head is out of the way. And I'm just holding the leg in a natural position and pulling towards my body with the clipper. Leaving the legs 1 or 2 lengths longer on a short pet trim is a great way to be able to add some style without adding a ton of maintenance for you or your client. And I'm just setting myself up with my clipper work to only have to do a tiny bit of scissoring around the bottom of the foot. Then you're just going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Before I do a guard comb on the top of the head, I want to make sure that I'm combing this all out because I don't want to snag a tangle and create a short spot. You can see the pattern that this dog's hair grows on the top of the head, so I'm going to use my guard comb and clip around this pattern so that I don't create cowlicks. I'm going to use a 0, and I'm just going to follow the direction of hair growth. I'm going to use lighter pressure on the very top of the ears, flip the ear out of the way, and then continue following that same direction that the coat is growing. You can also use a guard comb to set the length on the chin. Sometimes you want to use the same length as the top of the head, and sometimes you want to go shorter. I'm going to use the same length. Good girl. Good job. For this middle section where the throat meets the jaw, I'm going to go in reverse. This just helps blend my transition from face into body length without using shears. Another thing you can do to save time using your clippers instead of switching to your shears is skim. So with her tail all combed out, I'm going to take the length, use my 40 setting, and just skim that end length. I'll comb it out, check my work, and if I need to do any cleaning up, I will. This part is just tidying, so there won't be too many hairs coming off. Now that I've set myself up for easy finish work, all I have to do is round the bottom of her feet, trim her face, and then any sticky outies that she might have, like under the armpits, I'll get those really quickly with shears, but this shouldn't take me long. So I'm gonna comb to make sure that the hair is laying in its natural position. I've already set my bevel and started tidying with my clipper work. So all I'm gonna do is lift this foot, trim anything that might be hanging past the line I set with my clippers. Block off the front by scooping and trimming at a 45-degree angle. So I trim the back of the foot first, then the front of the foot. I'm gonna connect the sides by cutting straight towards the toe. Same thing on the inside. I wanna make sure that the dog is standing when I do this, because the shape of a dog's foot when they're bearing weight and when they're not, so when they're sitting, they're not putting weight on their pad, is different. If you can trim the foot in a round shape with the dog standing, it's gonna look cute even if the dog is sitting. But if you trim the foot with the dog sitting, when it stands up, these two middle toes push farther forward and create a pointed shape. So all I'm doing now, I've blocked in shear, 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 and I'm just gonna round the edges. With thinning shears. And there's our round foot. Here's an example of a sticky outie. This hair falls outside of my clipper line, and I'm just gonna take my curved shears and tidy that. This is also an area that you can skim with a 40 blade if you're comfortable using your clippers and not pressing all the way to the skin. We're just gonna repeat the process on the front foot, make sure we have all the hair combed out, check our clipper work, and trim anything that falls past that line we set earlier. Again, I wanna make sure that she's standing when I trim this foot so that it has the round shape we're looking for. I'm gonna find where her nail is and trim underneath at an angle and cut anything that could be touching the table, because all that stuff's gonna touch the ground and get dirty and gross. Now I'm gonna trim the sides by connecting my line in the back to my line in the front, trimming straight towards the toe. Trim straight towards the toe. And then we're gonna take our thinning shears and just tidy our shape. When I'm doing a Just a cute, soft pet trim. I want to try to have parallel lines in the front of my leg. So anything that falls outside of those parallel lines, I know I can trim. And if you set yourself up well with clippers, you shouldn't have too much work to do. Here's another sticky outie. And I'm just gonna take my thinning shears, trim it a little bit so it's nice and blended. You can see there's still a little bit of volume, more than I want, on the top of the toe. She's a very sweet dog, but she's a little bit nervous for having her feet trimmed. So I'm just using a position that makes her feel more comfortable. Now I'm gonna stand her up, see how it looks. Good girl, I know you're tired. You see I have a little bit of hair that's falling outside of that parallel line. I think that looks pretty cute. Then we're just gonna repeat the same thing on the other side. Even though she's so cozy and relaxed, we do have to trim her face still. So I've already set the length with my clipper. And I also want to show you guys the line. I've clippered all the way up to the back of the ear, and underneath her jaw, I've clippered all the way up to the jawline. We want to make sure that we are using our clippers. They are our best time-saving tool. So do everything you can with your clippers before you get to scissor work, and you'll set yourself up for success and a quick, stress-free groom. So I'm just gonna now, using the length that I've set with my guard comb, I'm just gonna round the visor and the muzzle. So since she's already laying down and we're right here, I'm just gonna blend this transition area from my guard comb length into my body length. This isn't necessarily the time that I would do this, but I'm gonna use her position to my advantage and just work with the dog on the table. And all that I'm doing is going from my longer length on the top of the head with the 0 comb into my 2 on the body. So my next step is going to be the visor. And I want to focus on just the visor hair, which is basically from the corner of the eye to the corner of the eye. Only this layer. The rest of this stuff, I'm going to comb back, move it out of the way. And I'm just going to focus right above the eye for now, because I'm going to use curved shears to trim this area really short. When we create a short first layer, we are creating structure in the coat that will allow the longer layers on top to not just flop forward and go right down into the dog's eyes. So I want to build structure down here that's going to support this longer hair up here. So I've gotten the side of the eye trim. Now we can see her cute eyes from the side. I'm gonna move into the middle of my visor, and remember, I'm not pulling all of this stuff down, only this visor hair. And I want just a slight U shape from this short point, and then we'll match it on the other side in a U in between. And I'm using thinning shears. I know we set this earlier with our clipper length, but I just want to make sure it's nice and tidy. This is a pet trim, we want it to last. So this is so far half of the visor done. We're just going to repeat on the other side. Okay, now that I can see the dog's eye, I want to set the jawline so that I can start to balance the face. When I'm setting the jaw, I'm gonna flip the ear. And remember, I kept bringing up how we're gonna clipper all the way to the bulb on the back of the ear. That's because when I flip this ear over, anything that falls past my clipper line, we're gonna trim all of that hair. So all this stuff underneath, we're gonna trim it out. And I want her to be standing when I set this line, just because when a dog sits, they can tend to squish up this area and move this. Everything that falls below the ear canal and the back edge of the ear canal right here, this is gonna be the start of my jawline. Everything that falls below the top corner of the jawline, this stuff can come out. And this stuff that's above the top corner of the jaw, I want this to be ear hair. So I'm not gonna trim that piece. So I'm just gonna start to clean this out so I can see what I'm doing. Find the back of that jaw and just trim straight up and down into the corner of that jaw. And you can see we start to have the back of our jawline defined right here. My next step will be to comb everything underneath towards the dog's neck. Because we clippered all the way up to where the neck and the head meet, we also know everything that falls past our clipper line, we can trim that too. So I'm just gonna cut straight until we have a square back here. Don't worry, we'll round it, but that's how I start to set myself up. And my last step is gonna be trimming this lip line. And then that way I know this is the front of my face and muzzle, this is the back, and I just wanna connect the dots with this middle piece. So I'm gonna comb all of this down, and I wanna cut a straight line between my bevel here and my bevel here. I'm gonna use my shears at a 45-degree angle because again, we wanna cut shorter hairs underneath so that they can support more volume on the top of the muzzle and create shape. So we're just setting our length, cutting a straight line between lift and lift, and matching that length on the chin. And I've already set the length on the side and the top of my head with the guard comb, so all I need to do is take my thinning shears and start to tidy this area. And I still want to cut at that upwards angle because again, I want to create structure in the coat to support a round and lifted shape. So I'm going to be trimming up and around. And then after I have my muzzle trimmed and the side of my face trimmed, now I just need to make sure that my transitions are blending. So my transition of my visor into the top of the head that we set with the guard comb length into the top of the ear. So when we look from the front, we can see there's some hair that's outside of our rounded shape right here. We're gonna need to thinning shear, and then we have a couple long pieces. So all we're gonna do is take our thinners and tidy it. We're taking away any hair that falls outside of our round shape that we're going for. I see she's got some sticky outies right there. And we're just gonna keep finessing until we're happy. This half of the face is finished. This half we're gonna finish right now. My last step is gonna be tidying the edge of the ear. I'm just gonna take my thinning shears and just kind of neaten the bottoms. I feel like a natural look on this ear just matches her personality. All right, so this is Zoey's after. She got a haircut all over, a 2 comb on the body, a 1 comb on the legs, cute round face. I lightly trimmed the ears and tail and she's ready to go.